All right, what's going on, everybody? We're back for another episode of the Beyond Train podcast. Special episode today. We got our first guest on, Wes Rowe from the Natural Human Diet. He's been doing raw primal for 5 years. He's just a fountain of wisdom in my mind. I love listening to the guy speak, so I'm super pumped about getting him on today. Without further ado, we'll get into it. Wes, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Right on. Yeah, so you brought something today to eat.
I did. Yeah, I brought up some 100% grass-fed beef liver. This stuff is all non-vaccinated, no medications, nothing like that. It's all local here. I try to get
Good.
as fresh as much as I can. This was frozen, but I try to get as fresh as much as I can. So this is just one of my favorite raw foods. It's amazing if you've never tried it before. It's almost euphoric, but I like to eat this fairly frequently, as much as I can. Raw.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had it cooked. It's just really good raw. So one of my favorite things to eat.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, in honor of you today, I actually brought a little smorgasbord myself here. I got some
Oh, okay.
oysters and a little bit of liver too, actually, non-vaccinated, organic, everything local, and
Nice,
a
man.
little ground beef there too. Yeah, man,
Cheers.
here.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers, buddy.
Sweet. Mm.
That's awesome. I used to eat cooked liver actually, and I hate it. I used to cook it over the fire and like
Mm-hmm.
it I just really didn't like eating it, but when you eat it raw, man, like I just find it's sweet and it's kind of nice. So
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's
don't recommend it cooked.
no, I can't. I really can't, man. It just blows my mind that people cook something like this. It just seems like it really if there's any evidence that cooking destroys food, I think it's really clear when it comes to organs and also like seafood. Like cooking something like an oyster or something to me just seems like tragic, you know?
Oh yeah. I've been eating oysters for a long time. I live on the East Coast here, so there's big oyster industry here and
Hmm.
um you know, I haven't eaten a cooked oyster. I ate one 2 years ago for the first time and same thing. It wasn't as good. Like, why would you destroy something so beautiful? So
I
I couldn't
know.
agree more.
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to start the podcast off. I want to ask you, you know, to kind of define health, right? So we can kind of give the listener an idea of where you're coming from. What does being healthy mean to you? I think this will give us a good baseline and we can work off of that.
Sure, man. Yeah, I mean, healthy to me is like a multitude of factors, and you're getting into like mental, physical, and spiritual. I think all those things working together, and they also play off of each other. So if one is negative, it's going to bring down the other one. So I think everything has to come up together at the same time, so to speak. So it's not necessarily just about getting vitamins in. That's one of the most important things I learned over the last 5 years. Studying food and getting so deep into nutrition and health, it's like, okay, there's a lot of other factors here besides vitamins. We got, I believe we're spiritual beings. You got to get your life together. You got to get healthy people around you, healthy relationships, all that stuff. I think goes in together with health and getting outside, sunshine, fresh air. Staying away from toxicity. I think those are all those things go into good health. But ultimately, I think it just comes down to you're in sort of like a homeostasis with your environment and everyone around you, and you're at peace and you're fulfilling your life's purpose.
Yeah, I love it, man. I 100% agree. It's more than diet. It's more than just what you eat, right? What you consume is definitely like what you consume mentally on the phone or the TV, right? That can definitely mess you up
Hmm.
too, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, we
Absolutely,
certainly
man.
saw
Yeah,
that recently.
that's a big one. Yeah, there's all sorts of toxicity comes in many forms. It comes in visual toxicity and physical toxicity, spiritual toxicity. It all can lead to disease in some form or the other. But yeah, nowadays it's definitely we're getting a lot of yeah phones and videos and all sorts of just mind pollution. So
Yeah, even things like music, I know you're a fan of classical music and I dabble a little bit here. I'm not well versed in it at all, but I've certainly noticed throughout my life, like when you're listening to that, like I used to listen to a lot of rap music back in the day, and it just influences your whole lifestyle, man. Like you start to really emulate these characters and you're trying to live out what they're talking about in the songs, and it can really mess you up there too.
Oh, totally, man. Totally. I did the same thing, man. I grew up in the I grew up in the '90s when it was just like the almost like the classical era of rap and hip hop, in my opinion. Of course,
I agree.
every person's gonna say their generation had the best music, but the that was when rap was huge, man. And yeah, I saw it influence everybody. It brought everybody sort of down a little bit, and yeah, as I got older, I started getting into more instrumental music and getting away from like lyrical music because I felt like the lyrics were just kind of bringing a lot of ego into it and taking away from the musical aspect. So I transitioned to like electronic music. So it still had like good beats to it and everything. And then I started getting into more like just classical. I was like, let me see how far I can take this. So I started getting into like classical music the last probably 5 years, man. And it's by far the best music, man, in my opinion. It's by far the best.
Yeah, I love it. Um, Even like, if I used to go to the gym and yeah, I'd go hit a workout, listen to some classical music, and it just hits different, man. Like I don't know what it is, but it just kind of makes activities better in my mind. I love it.
It does, man. Yeah, sometimes it fits like perfectly with what's going on in your environment, and sometimes it provides like a really beautiful contrast too. Like if you're like stuck in like rush hour traffic, like sometimes it's nice to throw in some classical because it's a total contrast. You're like surrounded by chaos, but then you have this like beautiful music coming out of your speakers, so that can be fun too. But yeah, man. I think it's called classical for a reason. It's just classic music, man, and like they were on something else back then when they made that stuff. And there's definitely like it seems like there's almost like an agenda to push that stuff away and make it seem like
Mm.
you're some kind of like nerd or something if you listen to classical music and you're not listening to like pop music. So I think there's definitely some, yeah. The radio is just, pushing a lot of terrible stuff right now. So it's good to get away from that.
100%. I was fortunate enough, actually, I took a course in university and it was Indigenous conservation, and we went out and we hiked in one of the national parks here, and we camped for a few days, and we actually made drums out of like all the deer hide and white ash ring and everything, and we soaked the hide in the river. We were out in the middle of nowhere. It was like a really profound experience, and they always talk to me about um like the lessons, big lessons that they taught was how music is not just music, right? It's like it's healing, it's medicine, and you can
Oh
certainly
yeah.
feel it like whenever I use my drum, like you know, it obviously carries a very special energy because I feel like the way it was created, and obviously it was created by myself and out
Hmm.
in the nature in the right state of mind, so um, and even just beating the drum like slowly and just not even playing a tune on it, just having that frequency, man. Like it just I can certainly feel the effects from it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, music is deep, man. It's deep because I mean, it's all frequency, and if you get down into the nitty gritty woo woo stuff, which actually isn't really woo woo, you can get into the physics and science of it. Like everything is frequency
Yeah.
and harmony and vibration. So when you get into sound and music, it's all just frequency and vibrations, and we're vibratory beings, and yeah, it's very healing. And then you can get into the rabbit holes of like the binaural beats and all that stuff. There's like binaural music, or that stuff gets really cool when you can listen to that and puts you into like trance like states, and it's deep, man. But one interesting thing that I heard about music like a while back, or like a saying about it, was like someone said that it's the carrier signal of the divine. I always thought that was a really interesting
Mhm.
quote.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's dope. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it really can affect us like on a deep level, and even deeper than just like our cellular body too. I feel like microbes are like when I look into it, I feel like microbes are really more delicate than us, and we are delicate electrical beings. But I feel like just the even things like electromagnetic frequencies, I feel like affect the microbes first. They affect the smallest, most delicate portion of our body first. And I think honestly, a way that music would be healing is directly through that. And obviously, I think it's directly through ourselves too. But I hear a lot of things about music and how playing it even out in nature affects the ecosystem itself. It affects like the fungal roots between trees and things like that, and it really elevates that too. So, that's kind of my thoughts. If you're getting into the more micro talk there, but
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for
yeah,
sure. I mean, that reminds me of like like studies they've done where they play plants like classical music, and they play plants different types of music, and they watch them grow. And there's also that lady. Well, there was who was it? Masaru Emoto. He made that book called "The
yeah,
Message Hidden Messages of Water." Have you ever heard of that? Where he
yeah,
was
definitely.
yeah, so he was like playing like classical music for water, and then freezing it, and then he was playing heavy metal music for water and then freezing it, and it would come up with all these different crystal structures. The classical music crystal structures were like beautiful, and then the heavy metal was real chaotic. So music, it's through that book and those experiments, he proved that it affects the water at like a cellular level and a crystal level. And we have like structured water inside all of our cells. So yeah, I mean, the music could be affecting like the water inside of all of our cells and everything. It's really interesting.
Yeah, man, and yeah, we were talking about that recently on the last couple episodes there, and um, like we talked about Masaru Emoto and Veda Austin as well, and how even intention can affect that structured water, right? Like even just your thoughts,
Oh,
right? So
I
that's
know,
another level, bro. Like,
I know, I know. It's mind blowing, man. It's almost hard to wrap your head around that. You're like, is that really happening? But her
hmm
posts are unbelievable. It's amazing that she doesn't have like 10 million followers. You know what I mean? It's like I just can't believe some of the stuff that Veda Austin posts. It's unreal, man.
it's art, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
really is.
yeah. Well, I'm not surprised that she's not real famous because I feel like once you connect through, you can really connect to the truth through that. Like I feel like once you're starting to understand that thoughts can affect water, and obviously we're mostly water, right? So our thoughts can
Yep.
you can really affect yourself, and
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
surprised
yeah.
that yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm surprised, but I'm also not surprised, just like you, man.
Yeah.
Because now you're getting into, okay, she's tapped into something that's very true, and now you're getting into almost like metaphysical, spiritual type stuff. You're getting into like good and evil concepts. You know, negative thoughts are going to affect people around you. Negative thoughts are going to affect yourself. Are the negative thoughts that you so-called have in your head, are those from you, or that's actually from somewhere else? It makes you question all that stuff, and now you're getting into just the whole biblical battle of good and evil. And when you start getting
Mm.
into that stuff, and you're getting into tackling evil forces and stuff like that, it's the media doesn't want anything really to do with that. you know that's just too, now you're getting into too much truth there. Now you're helping too many people. you know
Yeah, they don't
so
want that.
no, no, doesn't make money
Yeah,
when
that's
you
it,
heal
right?
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very true.
Yep.
Yeah, and like it's tough because it's not like the quick fix either. So, I can understand from that perspective too, because changing your thoughts and having that control over yourself, like, and your emotions is a rather difficult thing, and it's something that you have to work hard at developing. It's not like a quick pill either. So, I think society is in it for that quick fix too. So I think there is that aspect of it.
Hmm.
But obviously it is. I feel like it's totally suppressed. I mean, that's blatantly obvious too.
Yeah, they don't want you to know certain things, man, especially like we're in like an intellectual age right now, so they want us to be these empowered intellectual beings. They're pushing college and university on every kid, and they say this is your only option, this is your only way to get into the world, whatever. And they're ignoring the fact that we are spiritual beings. And there's an intellectual aspect of us, but But for the most part, and what I've learned over the last few years from a few different of my various teachers that I follow on the internet and that I've met through my life, that most thoughts, unless you're like analyzing a problem or fixing a problem, or you're like thinking about building a home or building a house or constructing something, our thoughts they're not our own. When you get these thoughts in your head, that voice in your head, whatever it is, whether it's audible or inaudible, that voice in your head it's not us. We don't know where it comes from. And this is like the basis of all like meditation and everything like that is, you're getting down into a place where you can observe your thoughts and realize that you're not the thought. You're something else separate from that. And they don't want you to know that stuff. They want us to be all stuck in our heads, stuck in our imagination, thinking all the time, believing all the voices in our heads. And everybody has them. It's not just like a schizophrenic thing. Everybody has them. Everybody's got those negative voices every once in a while that tell you certain things. And it's a big thing that can help people overcome a lot of issues in life if you just realize that they're not yours. Those thoughts are not yours. And if you can just ignore them, you know, it would be awesome if everybody could do that. But, you know,
Yeah, well, it's almost like you got to realize you're the observer and not the thoughts themselves, right?
yep,
And
yep,
but I do want to point out, like, the thoughts are powerful in themselves, though, right? So it's important to be able to control it too, because if your thoughts can affect things like water, there is that aspect of using your thoughts as a, almost as a tool, right? As a tool, like your hands or whatever. It's just another part of you that you have to use correctly.
sure. Yeah. And I think, yeah, that could be like difference between thought and intention, like there's the intention behind the thoughts and things like that. But I think what gets people is they get these thoughts in their head and then they confuse these thoughts for their own thoughts. And so they start believing, oh, this is what I'm thinking right now, man. And then it gets very confusing for people. But yeah, if you can just proceed forward with good intention in your life and sort of just live in the moment and just be like a witness, and not ever get stuck
Mhm.
in your head about anything and just witness and just observe. That's the true state of the human being, in my opinion, is just we're just here observing. That's it.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. 100%. Now, I want to tie it into diet a little bit here. How do you feel like your way of eating, right, on the raw primal diet has helped your mental state? Have you found any connection there?
Yeah, I believe so. Well, I believe for one thing, I'm a lot more clear headed, a lot less brain fog. I seem to be able to articulate words better, conversate better. I have a better attention span when I'm talking with people. That's where I notice it the most, is when I'm like engaged with other human beings. Because I think that's a really important part of our life, is when we're engaged with others. And so I always everybody I think is trying to be at their best when they're engaged with other human beings. So that's when I notice it the most. And since I started like filming my journey 5 years ago, I now have like videos, like hundreds of videos of myself from 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So I can go back every once in a while and like click on a video and watch it, and just I'm like, man, I totally forgot that I was that guy. I remember that dude. Barely remember him, but man, I cannot believe I've made it this far. So, if you just look at my videos, you can kind of see it. I think I definitely look different, but you can just tell my energy is different. But it's not just, eating raw steaks didn't like cure my life. I had a lot of personal issues and situations in my life, and negative relationships and things that I had to work around, that I did around the same time. And,
Mm.
healing family bonds and things like that I think a lot of people have issues with. So it was a combination of getting my diet completely in check and eating what I thought was the most nutrient dense, best diet in the world, and then eating all of the varieties of food that I could possibly eat, like just eating all these different foods, oysters and fish and liver and milk and butter and cheese, and like just eating everything all at once. and then getting my personal life in order too, and starting to have some sort of like a spiritual practice in my life. With all that stuff, yeah, like I'm thinking completely differently. And I feel like it definitely at least probably raised my IQ a little bit and my attention span. And I'm just able to, yeah, able to problem solve a little bit better for sure.
Yeah, man, definitely. And like you mentioned at the start there, like everything's connected, the mental, the spiritual, and the physical bodies, right? So it's about getting it all in order. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so one thing that's talked about a lot on the primal diet is detoxing heavy metals and um heavy metals, a common symptom of it is kind of brain fog and things like that too. So,
Hmm.
I'm sure that might have played a role as well, right? Getting those metals out.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure, man. And yeah, that's something I've thought about over the years, like how the metals get in me, and are they still in there? Probably a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like, I guess you could start with how did the metals get in me? And one thing that I think one way that they can get in you is, certain medical inoculations, that we get. There's the heavy metals in those. That's a way that they can get in your body, and they stay in there for quite a while. And also, I've done some research into like different types of plants. Like I used cannabis for a long time. I know that's becoming like a really big thing nowadays because they're legalizing it everywhere, and like everybody thinks that like smoking weed is okay and because it's legal, blah blah blah. But it's like you got to look into it, man. First of all the pesticides they're putting into it, and then also from what I've read, it is one of the strongest plants when it comes to pulling metals out of the soil into the plant. So, and I think tea is also one of those plants that does that. So you got to be careful with these like medicinal herbs because that's what I believe. That's what they are. I don't believe they're terrible drugs. I believe they're medicinal herbs and they have practical uses for people. But you got to be careful with them when you start using them every day, because they got heavy metals in them. And so that could be one way they got into my body. So, but,
Hmm.
going through the diet, I quit all that. I quit drinking coffee probably 4 years ago. I quit the cannabis 4 years ago. And, I've been completely sober for a long time, trying to just, keep my body clean of everything. And yeah, that's a crazy one, man, because there's a lot of different ways that can get in you. Chocolate, I guess, is a recent one that I've been reading about. There's like a big article about this company that did a bunch of research on chocolate, and they took even like the best, so-called best chocolates from natural grocers and all that stuff, organic chocolates, and they tested them, and they had all these heavy metals in them, man, like nickel
Hmm.
and lead and all this stuff. So it's like,
Yeah.
chocolate's, a plant comes from the cacao plant. So it's just like you got to be real careful about these plants. If you're using them all the time, you can get heavy metals in you for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, they're spraying it in the skies too, and it's coming out of exhaust, a lot of like cadmium or aluminum, things like that, right? So it's everywhere, man. It's everywhere. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts on heavy metals in fish, like old fish?
Oh yeah, like swordfish and tuna, and like the bigger fish. Um, that's a big question I get a lot, man, because that's something that's really pumped out in the mainstream. And
Hmm.
in my opinion, if you see something that's being pushed out in the media or the mainstream and it's meant to scare you, it's typically untrue. That's been my experiences, and it goes for almost everything. And when you realize that, it's like super enlightening and freeing when you realize that. So that is, I get that question all the time. I get that question as much as I get, why aren't you scared of parasites or E. coli or salmonella? So those are
Yeah.
obviously ridiculous questions to me because I know the truth about bacteria and parasites. So I think the heavy metals in the fish thing is also on that. But mostly the big reason I believe that is because of Augenis Planet's study that he did on fish with metal. And he basically had, he fed it to some dogs. He fed fish with metals in it, like he fed like swordfish to some dogs raw with some fat, and then he fed like cooked swordfish to another set of dogs, and then he studied their stools afterwards, and he noticed that the raw fed dogs, all the heavy metals came out in their stool, whereas the cooked fed dogs, the heavy metals retained in their bodies. So, in my opinion, that was pretty big evidence that when you just cook the fish, you're somehow mutating the metals, you're destroying the fats so they can't encapsulate the metals properly and export out your body. And basically, cooking the fish puts the metals in your body, whereas eating it raw doesn't. So that's why I'm not personally scared of metals in fish.
Yeah, man, and that was one of the most profound things that I read actually, and it was one of the first things I read by Agenus, and um, it kind of put me. That's what really put me on to eating raw foods. Like you're altering the food enough that you can absorb heavy metals from it. Like that's just massive in my mind. Like
Uh huh.
I'll never eat raw fish, I'll tell you that. Or sorry, I'll never eat cooked fish. I'll only eat it raw. Like,
I know.
meat, sometimes I'll cook a steak, but um because it's
Right.
good, but fish, man, is way better raw too. It's way more tasty.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's one of those things like liver and oysters. It's like, how could you cook this, man? And that's why, sushi is so popular. Sushi is so
Yeah.
popular because it's so good raw. But yeah, other stuff people freak out about.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree about the media thing. Like, it just proves itself true over and over and over again too, right? Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a cheat code, eh? If you want to know the truth, just go look at the media and then do the
It
opposite.
is. It totally is,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, if you want to know the truth, do the opposite of the media. If you want to know what's true about the medical industry, do the opposite of what the doctors do. That's what
Yeah.
Ogden has said. 99% of the time, do the opposite. Not always, though. Not always. I mean, obviously, medical system is there for emergencies, and they save a lot
Hmm.
of people's lives, man. So when it comes to surgeons and things like that, they do emergency surgeries and stuff. The hospitals they save a lot of lives too. But so
Definitely.
nothing is ever all good or all bad. That's where people get it mixed up.
True enough. True enough. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, the heavy metal thing, like, I think it's tough because you kind of have to go through this constant detox with it because it's almost unavoidable too, right? Like it's getting sprayed down unless you're really living in the middle of nowhere. But even like you
Hmm.
said, like the natural sources of it, like through plants, if you're going to be consuming that, like, and I'm sure there'd be a difference in consuming a raw cocoa bean versus the chocolate that's been cooked and pasteurized, right?
Probably, yeah. I mean, probably. I haven't looked too deep into that really, but it would make sense that cooking it and. But as far as I know, like raw cacao is just like so extremely bitter you can't even eat it. So it just makes you wonder, like, should we even be eating this stuff? If you can't pull it off the plant and eat it, you got to process it and sort of water it down and mix it with sugar and stuff. Because like just
True enough.
100% raw cacao is just like it's almost inedible, you know. So it just makes you
Yeah, I
wonder.
actually I did order some in the past, and what I'd do, they're just little beans, right? I'd put with maple syrup, and it was pretty good at that point. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah, of
to eat
course.
it straight up was kind of tough.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
like I would presume that, like you said though, like it's about balance. You're not going to go and eat the amount of raw cacao that you would eat in a chocolate bar, right? Like, if you're going to eat raw cacao, you might eat a bean or two out if it was if you were in a natural environment. So, like, it's all about the intuition with eating too. Like, but I really do think that when it's cooked, it's just completely altering it too, right? So it's kind of hard to make claims off the cooked stuff. Although I'm
Hmm.
not disagreeing with you here, I'm just kind of speculating too. Like, there's probably a role that the microbes are playing in the digestion of that, or even, when I think of things like anti-nutrients, I think, well,
Uh-huh.
maybe the anti-nutrients are in those plants for a reason. Maybe they help with not absorbing heavy metals, or, I'm not 100% sure. I haven't looked into it overly. It's kind of just a thought that's
Yeah.
That's crossed my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, man. I yeah, when you get into the science and stuff, like I come from, I don't know if I would say a science background, but a science mind. Like I was always really interested in math and science and really good at that stuff in school. So like I have the ability to understand it. And the more
Mhm.
I get into like the science when it comes to like nutrition and food and health and stuff, I'm just like, it just, this stuff just seems like a distraction, like almost like a waste of time. Because if you just use like your intuition, like that's why we have God given intuition. Because before there was like science books, like we didn't have anything. We just had our intuitions. And so it's like if we were hungry and starving and walking through the forest and we found like a cacao plant, would we have eaten those beans? Would we have wasted that time doing that, or we would just like started eating like bugs and lizards and animals and instead, you know? Like I
Mm,
personally don't think I would have been drawn towards a lot of different plant foods just because of their taste.
fair
So
enough.
yeah, I think intuition is huge, and you know, like before the invention of the microscope, like they had suspicions that like microbes existed, but like they had like no clue. That's which is pretty mind blowing because the microscope is like not that new at all. I mean, it's not that old, I should say. So before that, like they didn't even know about microbes and things like that. So and they were healthy. They were probably healthier than we are back then. So like, so
Mm,
what's the point? You know, that's what. The more I get into this stuff and I see other health influencers and other health channels and stuff, and there's people that just they have really interesting and like almost like it's entertaining stuff when it comes to like getting into the science. But I'm just like, is it really necessary? You know, I always question it. It can be fascinating though when you do like an actual scientific experiment like the one we talked about with Ogenus and the fish and the
mm.
dogs. I love that stuff. Like that stuff is very like easy to understand. You fed a dog this, you fed this other dog this, and there's two different things happened. It's like so easy to understand. I love stuff like that. I love experiments, you know, personally. But
Yeah, well, I feel like that's closer to what science truly is.
it
Not, it's
is,
not really epidemiology or anything like that.
right? Yeah, we're
Yeah.
splitting hairs and we're getting into the weeds, and everybody's just getting lost into nutrition land, and that's why everybody's so confused, man. So that's why I love doing what I do because I just like tape myself eating raw meat, and and that's it. I'm just like jump to your own conclusions, man. Draw your own conclusions from this. Ask your own questions. You can ask me all the questions you want. I'm not going to sit here and make a lot of claims. I'm just going to do this, and we'll see what happens. It's an experiment,
Yeah. That's
you
it,
know.
man. That's and it's probably a source of of your mental clarity too, right? And kind of your mental health, right? Like you're just doing what feels good for you and you're connecting to instinct and your intuition. I feel like that plays a huge role in mental health.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Because like we were talking about earlier, like I'm not lost in my head. I'm not sitting
Mm,
here getting lost in my imagination and daydreaming about all the different stuff, all the different facts and information about food and all this stuff you can read online and books and reading books about food. You know, it's just all this. It's just like just go out there and be the experiment. You know, experiment on yourself, and it's just yeah, it's easy life.
yeah, like and I certainly went through that too, and I'm starting to connect more with my intuition now. But when I first started getting into like really the nitty gritty with eating more meat and stuff like that, I followed a lot of Paul Saladino's work, and he scared me to death about anti-nutrients and the big one was avidin and egg whites.
Oh
The
man,
thing that binds biotin. So I
right?
was eating egg yolks, only egg yolks for a long period of time, and at one point I was like, there's no way that if I was in the woods, am I gonna separate out the yolk from
Yeah,
the egg white? I'm just
I,
gonna eat the whole thing, man. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's another great one that people talk about all the time, man. I've been eating raw eggs in whole for like 5 years, and I don't have like a biotin deficiency, you know.
yes.
So what is the deal? I eat five a day every morning. It's like I don't have any issues. And yeah, like you said, just put yourself in a primitive setting. And people have a lot of questions about nutrition and health and food, and they want to ask me, how much should I be eating? How often should I be eating? How often should I eat liver? How often should I eat brain? Blah blah blah. And I just go, put yourself into like a tribal situation. Like, how often would you have went and killed a deer or an elk, right? And how big is your tribe? Let's say you have a tribe of like, I don't know, 5, 10 people. You kill a deer once a week or something, so you have like one brain a week, or you have like one liver. You split the liver up between 3, 4 people. You have like a little chunk of liver once a week. You know what I mean? Like, just you got
Mhm.
to think about it that way. Like, realistically, like, we didn't have like the internet where you could just order liver to your mailbox and just stock your freezer full of liver and eat like a pound of liver every day. Like, that's not right. So they're like, what about hypervitamosis A? What about like liver toxicity, vitamin A toxicity, blah blah blah? And I'm like, just put yourself into a primitive setting. How much liver would you have actually eaten? And to me, it seems like maybe like half a pound a week. A couple pounds a month seems like normal to me. That's about it. You
Mm.
know, a couple
Yeah,
ounces
and
a
it,
day.
like
You know,
might be a lot, eh?
a couple ounces a day might
I
actually
find it.
be too much.
What's that now?
A couple ounces a day might actually be too much. I don't know, because that's like a pound a week. But you know, I don't know if I necessarily buy into the hypervitamosis A stuff. I don't know if I necessarily buy into the vitamin A overloads, the vitamin overloads. Because
Mm.
now, like, someone sent me, who was it? It was Sophia. So do you follow her on Instagram? Sophia Milk and Honey, I think, is one of her
Raw milk and
monikers.
honey. Yeah, I think I do. Yeah.
She's good, man, because every once in a while she comes through with just like a banger post. And
Mm.
she posted one recently about how there's no evidence that there's actually a thing called vitamin deficiencies. So, like, if you look into like the history, I don't know if you ever looked into the history of like vitamins, but it's, if you haven't, look it up, man. It's really interesting. Like who discovered the first vitamin, and it's really interesting, man. We can look it up
Was it
some other time.
sense geology? It was vitamin C, right?
Um, it might have been, but me and my wife were looking it up the other night, and it just blew our minds because it was really interesting. Like, it's just all like, it's almost like all a lot of nonsense, dude.
Mm. Oh, it was vitamin A. It was vitamin A. Frederick Gowland Hopkins.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard of that work. I listened to Daniel Roitas from Humanely, and I think he's pretty tight with Sophia. Um, and they kind of have the same views on vitamins and things of
Uh
that
huh.
nature. So yeah, that's a super interesting topic, man. I definitely don't understand it well enough, but from what I heard, it was like, all vitamin, whatever we would call a vitamin deficiency just leads to more
Hmm.
of like a backup in the body of toxicity. So it's like,
Yeah.
so you're dealing with more than just a deficiency. Like, anyway, super, super cool stuff, man.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, the scurvy thing was like a long time ago. They realized that like citrus foods obviously helped prevent scurvy, but
Hmm.
there was another situation where some other guy had like some animals or something. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it right now, but he had some animals, and he discovered that like when he fed them this certain thing, he fed them like the rice like without the husk or something, or with the
Okay.
husk, and, or
Yeah.
something like that. And he found that they got like sick if you fed them one way, but if you fed them the other way, they got healthier. And so then he came up with like vitamins after that, and just. But anyways, um, I need to get the story down a little bit better before I start talking about it. But anyways, it's just fascinating that when you look into like actual vitamin deficiency stuff, it could be just like toxicity in the body.
Hmm. Yeah, and like I think it was either Sophia or Daniel Reuters speaking about it. And it was like they were talking about Weston A. Price's work, And they weren't necessarily discounting his observations, but they were kind of just saying, these people were living in accordance with nature, right? They weren't living, trying to eat their vitamins and get their vitamin intake. They were just living off of their land in obviously in a more communal space. And uh, stress was probably not a factor except for waking up and maybe getting your food, but that seems more like a natural stress than anything. And you
Hmm.
weren't burdened by thoughts and knowledge or information all the time. So their proposition was that it was more about just living this natural way than trying to get all the vitamin A that you possibly can and drinking cod liver oil all the time, right?
I
So
know. I know. Yeah. That's really interesting, man. Yeah. That could very well be true because yeah, I mean, you see situations where people they're not necessarily eating like nutrient dense foods all the time, but they look really healthy. And it's like, how does that work, you know? Like, so yeah, it's definitely not just all about vitamins, man. That's for sure. And like just like we talked about with the media, like, if they're trying to scare you with like an article or a news story or something, you can almost guarantee that it's fake or it's not real. Um, you can say that like, I just forgot what I was going to say. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
that's all right, man. Um, well, I think I'll add that, the supplement thing, like when you go down to the grocery store, like, um, you go into the pharmacy and what do you see now? Whole section of synthetic vitamins or minerals, whatever it may be. And,
Hmm.
the supplement industry's not so much different than the pharmaceutical industry in my mind.
Right, right, and that reminds me of my point I just lost. So, like I said, like if the media is trying to pump out negativity, you can almost guarantee it's wrong. If the media or the social medias are trying to promote something very heavily, you can almost guarantee it's BS as well. And
Mm,
all you hear about is like vitamins, man. You got to take your vitamins. You got to make sure you have your vitamins. Blah blah blah, and then supplementation. People are pushing supplements so heavy, so heavy, so heavy, and you can just almost guarantee that like there's that's not the answer, you know, because everybody's got to take their vitamins and supplements, blah blah blah. It's like maybe there's a different way to do it, you know.
mm. Yeah, I agree. I don't think supplements are the whole story here for optimal health. It's hard to discount the entire thing because you do see, like, it's hard to deny that you see people take supplements and kind of get a little better, right? I have seen that, and I've experienced it myself, like even taking magnesium in the past. Maybe it's because I was, and I'm going to say the word deficient here, but
Hmm.
maybe there was a role in that, but it could have just been the whole lifestyle factor change too. Like I feel like once people start getting into supplements, they're starting to just
Right.
overall get a little healthier too, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep. That's exactly what's happening, and there's all these confounding variables, and you don't know what caused what, but you just want to assume the supplement did it. There's also the placebo effect, which is like
mm,
extremely powerful, you know. There's also that.
definitely.
There's also just believing that you're getting healthier, you'll actually get healthier. And if you believe you're getting more sick, you will get more sick. And that comes down to the intentions influencing your environment thing, you know. So, positive thinking, you'll get healthier. Negative thinking, you're going to get more sick. And so there's so many factors that go into it. But yeah, there's just when you look at like the studies and there's no evidence at all that supplements actually work at all, especially like the vitamin
Mm,
D and all that stuff. And then that even rolls over into big pharma, into like antidepressants and things like that. There's no evidence that those work either. But then again, you see people that take them and they swear by them. So there's
yeah,
something else. There's something else going on, you know.
yeah, yeah. Especially in the mental health thing. Like, well, they even like the establishments even come out with these massive umbrella analysis of the serotonin theory of depression, that it's a serotonin deficiency, or that SSRIs work. And like it's
Hmm.
kind of it's admitted, that was a study that came out like maybe a year ago or something, and it was like they concluded that there's just no evidence to say that it's a serotonin deficiency or that SSRIs actually work objectively. So I would
Yep.
say the placebo effect's the biggest thing there, man.
Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah, the whole theory that there's low dopamine levels or low serotonin levels, it's all theory. And they
Mm,
based all of these medications that they designed and created based on a theory that was unproven. And they just promoted it to everybody and told them this is what's going on, and everybody believed it, but it's never been proven. Like the whole serotonin deficiency stuff, it's like, where's the measurements at? They don't even measure your serotonin, so how do they know it's deficient? And then how do they know how much to give you after that? They give everybody the same amount. It's just, it doesn't make any sense, man. It was just a big
hmm
money grab, you know.
And I kind of parallel that to like religion, man. And that's why I kind of look at science as more of a religion than anything. It's like a belief system, right? It's like if you're gonna, well, everyone's so brainwashed into thinking that science knows that all the answers, right? And that's probably the reason why these placebos are working. But it's no different than back before science. All you had was, the church telling you that your disease was caused by sin and, you're deficient in the divine and it's kind of the same story, just recycled.
It is. It is, man. It is, dude. And like, who knows? A little bit of the answer might be just, all these different things might just be one piece of the puzzle. Maybe the church
Mm.
wasn't 100% wrong. Maybe science isn't 100% wrong. Maybe these guys over here aren't 100%. Maybe the witch doctors aren't 100% wrong. Maybe they're just all pointing towards the truth in their own little way. But you can't like put all your eggs in one basket and just believe one group of people. You got to always just take it for a grain of salt and just, look at all the possible solutions.
Yeah, so like when it comes down to it, like getting back to your intuition, right? And kind of doing what's true and being mindful and kind of getting rid of these ideas in your mind, like what do you think about that? Like and like because all I can see is that, you got to just get away from these dogmas that are pushed onto us and start doing what's right for you and you'll find the truth within yourself.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's all about just being like a free thinker and not being afraid to question authority. That's a big part of
Mm.
it. And not being afraid to look crazy and just, but yeah, it all comes down to free thinking, independent thinking, man. And some people are like that, some people aren't. But it's like, and they got to have courage too. It takes a lot of courage to question the status quo, question the medical system. Like, everybody questions the government. That's almost like mainstream now to question the government. It's like,
Nearly, yeah.
that's normie stuff, man. But like, why don't you start questioning doctors, and then start questioning like religious leaders and things like that, and then you start really pissing some people off. So it takes free thinking and it takes courage, man. And yeah, you just gotta. There's a certain type of person out there that's like, they're harder to brainwash than other people, and those are the people that we run into online, and that's our community. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's funny there, like just thinking about like eating raw meat was kind of a step in the right direction for me, because it's like you eat it and everybody in my life criticized it. They're like, "You're crazy, man. Like you're crazy. You're gonna die of whatever bacteria or whatever it may be." I just thought that was a right step, like a good step in the right direction, you know?
It is for sure. It is, man. Yeah, it's very interesting people's reactions to it. And when you get reactions like that, man, you can almost guarantee that you're doing the right thing. You know, it's fun. After a while, it just gets fun because you just
It's
expect it.
fun, man.
I just laugh at people, man. Now I'm to the point to where I'm eating like high meat at my job, like for breakfast. So like I drink my clabbered milkshake with 5 raw eggs, and then I about an hour or two later I'll just open up that jar of high meat, and these guys are just like, "Oh man, come on, man! Like go outside with that shit."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just laughing, dude, like so hard because because I know how delicious it is, but at the same time, I know how disgusting it looks. So it's funny when you can kind of see both sides and just kind of just whatever, laugh it off.
Yeah, that's it, man. Keeping it light 'cause you don't want to stress
Yeah,
yourself out about it either. If you're eating meat and you're just like stressed about what everyone's thinking about you, it's gonna
yeah,
cause you a whole
right.
thing of problems too.
Yeah, I think it's easier for guys because women are
Mm.
they're so much more concerned about their appearance and how they look to people and their reputation. That's like a big thing with women. So that's why I think you see a lot more men than women doing this. I don't think it's necessarily a barbaric thing, because my wife, she eats 100% raw with me, and she's not like a barbarian type woman. She's a very like
Yeah.
sweet, she's a very sweet girl, but she eats all the crazy stuff with me too. But she just doesn't care as much, because she's got me by her side to, you know, she doesn't care what people think. But I think, yeah, it's guys can kind of just laugh it off because we're more barbaric. But yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and like it's a tough thing too, like just being on the question side of things because you're just an outcast from pretty much all society. Like, man, through COVID there, like that's kind of when I had my shift in perspective and like you'd be going to the store and I'd be the only one without a mask on and I'd have like 50 people saying something to me, you know? It was like
Hmm.
almost a challenge. I mean, like it was kind of I always try to find humor in it. Like I'd laugh it off or make a joke or be like, there's a what's a pandemic? Like what do you mean? What's going on? Like and
Yeah.
finding light in it. But I remember like the first few times doing it, like you're kind of heart racing and you're thinking, oh, is someone gonna say something to me or
Oh
whatever?
yeah.
Like,
Oh
it
yeah.
is challenging to take that first step too.
It is, man. Yeah, I went through the same thing, man. I remember like like just going to the store to get something to eat, and it was like I'm like preparing for battle or something. I'm like, all right, here we go, and like all I'm doing is just walking in. It's so stupid, but it's all about consent. This is what Owen Benjamin talks about quite a bit. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a
Hmm.
very enlightening guy, and he talks about consent. These guys, the government, whoever it is, they can't do anything to you unless you consent to it. And I ran into this a lot of times with the mask stuff. Like I'd walk into the hardware store, and a guy manager would come up to me and say, "Here, do you want a mask?" And I would say, "No, I'm good." Or do you want to come back here and put on a mask? And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good." He's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, "Okay," and he just walked away. So like I was like, "It's that easy? You just gotta tell him I don't want to wear one." But there was other situations where I got asked to leave too. You know,
Hmm.
so I did that. And then there was other situations where I wore one because I needed to get a haircut and I didn't want to disrespect my barber. You know,
Yeah.
So I went ahead and just put one on when I got a haircut for this certain guy because it was a very small environment, and I don't know how their views on germs and stuff. And I wasn't back then. I wasn't willing to grow my hair out. I wish I would have just grown it out. But so yeah, there's situations I did bend a little bit. I had some situations at work where we had to enter like hospitals and stuff, and I had to wear one
Mm.
for my job. I wasn't willing to quit my job over that, but
Yeah.
but for the most part, yeah, I tried to defy it as much as I could, just because it was nonsense.
Yeah, and to keep it civil, like obviously you had to bend a little bit, like, in the situations where you want to be respectful to people and things like
Yeah,
that. So
right,
and I think the way you go about it is important too, right? Like, because when I was confronted about it, it's not like I was, causing a scene, screaming, "Oh, microbes don't cause disease, you're an idiot," whatever. Like, you're not coming at them disrespectfully either. Like, it's no thank you, like I'm all right, like like,
right.
make a little joke or whatever, and then hopefully you're just on your way. And obviously sometimes people are on the fighting side of you and they want to tell you what to do and what's right for you. And but
Hmm.
I think just having that respectful demeanor, well, was important in that situation, but in all situations.
Sure. Yeah, it totally is, man. It's all about how you handle it, really. The first guy to lose his cool loses the battle. Really, it's just about standing firm.
Yeah, man. 100%. Hmm. That's great. And obviously we're on the other side of it. And now you look back and you think, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that, but that's not very helpful either, right? Like, just got to keep moving forward with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was wild. That was a wild situation, man. And luckily, I didn't have to deal with it a whole lot because everybody at my work knew it was total nonsense, including the
Mm,
owner and everybody that worked there. So none of us had to deal with anything at work, and I was never forced to do anything that I really didn't want to do. So, but yeah, a lot of people, man, that situation woke up a lot of people, man. And I was fortunate enough to wake up a couple years before COVID. You know, I was making videos on viruses and stuff like that, like before that even happened, which is
yeah.
interesting. So it's like God woke me up before that, and He was like, "Let me just teach you a couple things here, because there's gonna be something in the horizon here in the next couple years that you might want to know about." So, but even if I didn't, you know, discover autogenous and all this crap, like my intuition still would have been like, no, I'm not going to do all this stupid stuff. That's just always been my, that's always been sort of my vibe, you know? I don't
Hmm.
like people telling me what to do.
Fair
It's
enough,
just
man.
down to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like that's cool, man, because I woke up like kind of during it. I was in my second year, like in my undergrad, and um, I just kind of stumbled upon Andrew Kaufman's work, and he really got me into the idea. And then I actually discovered Agenus like only about a year ago. My buddy did give me a tip on him before, but I didn't look into it. And but man, like I kind of think they screwed up during COVID. Like I feel like they pushed the envelope a little too much, and because I know a lot of people that are like, if we were to go through it again, like it would be a very different scenario this time. So I kind of feel
Mhm.
like it was good in a way because of, well, I'm very grateful for it because obviously I've changed quite a bit and my perspective has shifted for the better. And so that's where I have my gratitude for it. But I just feel like in general, that's a big shift that I've been seeing, especially in younger people.
Yep, yep. It's dude, that's like the nature of evil, is that it always ends up destroying itself. That's its
Mm.
nature, is to destroy, and it will consume itself eventually if you just let it run its course. That's why there's no sense in getting freaked out about this scary stuff in the media, or stuff that may actually be true, you know, like, oh, there's another pandemic coming, blah blah. It's just like, just let it run its course, and you'll see that these guys will destroy themselves, man. And that's exactly what happened with COVID, man. Is they ran the script too long, and people started going, wait a second, like, hang on a sec here. You know, first of all, it's safe and effective. Then it's only 80% effective. Then you need four of them, and then now 6 million people died. It's just like, what's the truth here? Like, I thought it was safe and effective, and then, like, all this, a lot of people woke up to that because they tried running the script a little bit too long. They got greedy, man. Because
Definitely.
evil forces, they feed off of people's fear. It's like their food. So the COVID thing, just it was just a total just freak out campaign, and it just freaked out the world, and all the little gremlins were just loving it. So,
Mm.
anyways, yeah, that's what they did, is they ran the script too long. And you'll see that happening too with not to get into too many like social or political issues or anything like that, but there's certain social issues and political issues being pushed now on mainstream media and television and things like that, that they're also running the script a little bit too far, and people are starting to see it, so it's not going to work.
Yeah, man. And I always say that the real contagion is fear.
Yep. Yeah.
Spreads like wildfire.
Fear is the mind killer, man. Dude, it's all biblical, dude. It's like, once you realize that, and you just like, you break everything down into its working parts and look at it, and you're just like, wow. It's like, I'm not like a big, Bible beater or anything like that, but I'm just like, all this stuff was like almost predicted like 2,000 years ago if you just look into it, you know just when it comes to fear. fear is just like, yeah, it's just straight up from the devil, dude.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's very
Yeah,
interesting
and
stuff.
I find it's cyclical too, right? Like it just kind of happens in a different script. It's the same, like you said, you break things down to its components and you're just seeing it cycle through history. It's just kind of the same story, but the different
Yeah,
words.
yeah, it really is, man. They say history repeats itself, and that's exactly
Mm.
what's going on. And they say there's a lot of sayings about history, but like you basically like you have to study history or else you're doomed to repeat it. And so that's why people laugh at people that try to promote certain things, and they're like, haven't you read a history book? Like, this isn't gonna work, dude. Like communism or something. Like, do you want 100 million people to starve? Haven't you read history books? You know,
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and like my favorite quote about history is we learn from history that we don't learn from history. I think Hegel said
Oh,
that.
oh, that's great,
That's my
dude.
favorite one.
That's a good one for sure.
Because you
That's a
see it,
good
man. You see people who study history, right? You have people who study history and they're still wearing the mask. Wearing the mask. They're going, "Oh, could you believe all that propaganda back in World War II or something?" Right? Like,
one. Yeah, yeah.
it's funny,
Oh,
man.
it's
So it's kind of tough, man. Like getting to that point is kind of tough too. And I feel like it's a real internal battle because, you go through your phases too. And like, I went through my phases where it was like, I had to try and wake everyone else up and really push everything onto everyone around me. And I just didn't find that very helpful, like doing it in the most passive way is the best way in my mind. Like, you know, as I just kind of focus on myself and develop myself, everyone around me gets better. They all progress. And so it's just like, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about, self development as helping others? Like, man, I tried to push it onto everybody, man, but that just doesn't work.
oh yeah, dude. I've been through all that too, man. Went through that whole thing. I want to tell everybody like, oh, you gotta eat raw meat, dude. It's gonna save your life. No, like it's gonna fix everything. Blah blah blah. Like you gotta stop eating vegetables and the carnivore diet, dude. You gotta get on the carnivore diet and just. I went through that whole thing because it was changing my life, but just the looks, like people just don't care, man. Like people, first of all, like people don't really care in general. They don't care what you eat. No one cares what you eat, man. If you want to bore somebody to death, tell them, without them asking you what you eat. They don't care, and they don't care to tell you what they eat either. It's just, it's just boring, man. So like, but you can't wake anybody up. Like you can't wake people up. They will wake up on their own, and I believe that only the best way I can see it is only God wakes people up, and
Mm,
all we can do is build community because there's strength in numbers. So all we can do is just send our little beacon out, our little frequency out, like you're doing right now. You're going to record this, you're going to upload it, and you're going to send out this little beacon of light and frequency into the universe, and it's going to draw in some people, and they're most likely going to be already in the process of waking up, if they have found your channel. And it's going to build community. And then now you have strength in numbers. And then, I'm not really sure what happens from there because I'm kind of at that point right now where I'm building community. But
mm.
like beautiful things can happen, man. Like I met my wife through this whole process, like through this whole thing that I'm talking about, So like I met her through that, and we're gonna start a family and we're gonna have children, like all because of this like building community thing. So like it's powerful, So a lot can come from it if you just don't worry so much about trying to change people and trying to convert people or trying to shame people that don't believe what you believe. It's about having compassion for other people and realizing that like even though they may think opposite of you, like that could have been you 10 years ago, Like I don't, I believed a lot of stuff like 15 years ago that I don't believe today. So everybody's in their own stage of development and their own growth process. And it's just a matter of what I try to do with my channel is just stay in my lane, and I try not to jab at other people and just build community and just see what happens from there, man. That's all we can really do.
Yeah, well, you kind of do that just what you're doing, man. You go on live and you just do your thing. You're just doing your thing, man, and it's attracting people, right? People, I feel like people have an affinity for what's real too. Like people are drawn to the truth. It's no doubt like, a lot of, elderly people are really tapped in, man, and they may be, they never caught like people are caught up in their own dogma and things like that, but you know, you tend to just tap in naturally through life,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
get to that source. It's uh it's cool to talk about, man, and like, it's cool to read about it too, and um but getting back to what we were talking about earlier, the information can kind of hinder you too, man, because like when I was looking like when I started looking into all this stuff, it was like, the elites or whatever, you're looking into that and these rich families, and then I developed a hatred towards them, and you can get kind of stuck in that loop of inaction and just learning about who's controlling the world, and they're doing this to us, and I think that's also really problematic. What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, 100%, man. Now you're getting into blaming groups of people for your problems, and which is like so many people do that, like if it's the Democrats, it's all the Republicans' problem. If it's the Republicans, it's the Democrats, and then
Mm,
you got the media trying to blame white people and blame black people, and you got the elites and you got the Illuminati and you got like the Jews and like whoever people want to try to blame like all their problems on. Like it's all BS, man. Like because now you're making yourself a victim. You're painting yourself a victim, and like that's a bad place to be when you have now made yourself to be a victim. Poor me, I'm being victimized by these people, and you're not taking responsibility for your own issues. And so there's ways around the system, and Owen Benjamin is a great guy to learn about this stuff from. But you can build your own communities, you can build your own systems outside of the beast, and you can operate outside of it. You don't have to consent to what they're doing, and you don't have to be
mhm.
a victim at all. You can just, you know, build your own beautiful life and just pay attention to what's good, true, and beautiful to you, and just not look at all that other stuff. Because that's like the point of evil is it wants you to focus on all this other stuff and paint yourself a victim, and it's just it's a sick place to be.
Love it, man. Responsibility. You got to take responsibility for your own life in every way, man. Every way.
Well, it's the black pill, man. Like a lot of people when it's the process, when you get into this whole thing, you take the black pill and you're like, oh man, I'm getting screwed. Got screwed by the doctors. I got screwed by my teachers. I got screwed by the government. Like, man, we're getting screwed here, man. And then you get into red pilled. You start getting red pilled on stuff, and then you get clown pilled. That's what Gavin McInnes coined that term. And then you can just laugh at it.
Yeah. And then you realize there is no pill.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, well, I mean, seems like a pretty good time to wrap it up there, man. I think we kind of circled through a lot of things here. That was great. Like, if I could ask you one last question, what would
Sure.
be the if you could give it concretely, like, because things are abstract, and people do love the concrete, what are the things that you can do that are going to help you live naturally, tune into that intuition in this modern world? What's the one thing that helped you the best, man?
Um, I think I think diet is huge. Like I was talking about earlier, diet is huge. Family, family is wealth,
Mm,
and just trying to be a compassionate person, forgiving person. There's a lot of principles, a lot of spiritual principles that I think help, but just just trying to be at peace and living in harmony with your environment and being outside and grounding and trying to build community, build family, creating. I think is a huge thing. Idle hands is the
mm.
work of the devil. The devil's playground. So keeping your hands busy, creating things, But there's a lot of different things, man. I can't really point my finger at one, but yeah, I think getting in tune with your spiritual side is a big part of it, though, because I think at our core we are spiritual beings, and we're just kind of living in our flesh suit. So the more you can kind of get in tune with that, the metaphysical side of the reality, I think the more things will start to become clear about the nature of our reality around us.
Yeah, well, I think put that very well. I know it's not it's kind of hard question. It's not just one thing, right, that you can do. But I
Yeah.
find putting that first foot forward,
Mhm.
and the other foot just follows, man, and then you're just walking and you're going, like, and things kind of just seem to come in and align together, right? So,
Sure. Yeah. Just do
yeah,
what's in front of you. Do what's in front of you every day, man. Don't look back. Don't look forward. And just do what's in front of you every day and just work hard, man. Especially if you're a man, work hard, and you will be known by the fruits of your labor, as they say.
that's great. Well, Wes, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You bet, man. That was really fun, dude. Appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, I enjoyed that. So why don't you tell the listeners how they can support your work? I know you got a tallow company and you do one-on-one consultations.
Yeah, yeah. You can find me on Instagram, the Real Natural Human Diet. You can find me on YouTube, the Natural Human Diet, and then we also have a grass-fed tallow-based balm and cream company that we just started, and that's rownaturals.shop. It's ROWE naturals.shop. And then we also have an Instagram at rownaturals. And you can support me through there. And if you're interested in consultations, I do consultations. I have an email for that. It's 88668 at protonmail.com. And then you can get a hold of me through Instagram too.
I'm seeing a lot of good reviews on that tallow too.
Yeah. Yeah. People love it, man. It's a high quality product. I'm not gonna like, you know, I'm not gonna say it's not. It's a great product, dude. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna sell anything that's not just top quality. We get all like the best ingredients you can get, and it's the best kind of moisturizer or like balm that you could use on your skin. So,
unreal.
and we got more stuff coming too. We're gonna make some natural soaps and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good field to be in right now, man. Natural products are, especially high quality ones, are hard to come by, man. Like, we're bombarded by those petrochemical products, man. It's so bad, so bad.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, I love it, man. All right, and I want to thank you, listener. Everyone should know that this is not medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. Remember, though, we're all responsible. We're sovereign beings. We're capable of thinking, criticizing, and understanding anything. We, the people, with the greater forces, are together self-healers, self-governable, self-teachers, and so much more. Please reach out if you have any questions, criticism, comments, anything. Love to chat. Beyond.terrain on Instagram. Go check out Wes's channel. He's unreal. He's just a fountain of knowledge. We really scratched the surface today. Um, he does great chats. He just eats raw meat on Instagram. It's the coolest thing, man. You can go ask him questions, and yeah, I love it. I appreciate every single person that listened today. If you enjoyed it, found it informative anyway, you know, please like, share, comment, support me, and go support Wes too. Um, Remember, there are two types of people in the world: those who think they can, those who think they can't. Both are correct. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. Do what's in front of you. Keep on trucking. You'll be all right. All right. Take care, guys.